They sealed Elowen Marsh out of the Rain Cellar while the jars were still calling her name. Not with words. Moonwater did not speak like people did. It tapped glass. It breathed mist. It trembled when thirsty hands had been turned away too often. Tonight, every jar in the cellar struck its lid once, as Alpha King Darric Stonefell pressed his seal into the door. The sound moved through the stone hall like knuckles knocking from inside a grave. Chosen Luna Lysenne Vaust stood beside him in a gown of pale silver, her hair braided with moon pearls, her expression soft enough for the court to mistake it for mercy. Behind her, the noble houses of Vossmere watched Elowen with the satisfaction of people who had finally found one small throat to blame for a long drought. "There," Lysenne said gently. "Now no one can accuse the crown of letting sacred water disappear into servant hands." Elowen stood barefoot on the cold stone, her rain-gray dress damp at the hem, her fingers still smelling of clay lids and wet moonlight. The cellar key had already been taken from her. The thirst ledger had been taken too. That hurt more. Keys opened doors. Ledgers proved why doors had been opened. Darric did not look at the ledger. He had listened to Lysenne. He had listened to the council. He had listened to the noble widows who wore thirst as jewelry while their private wells stayed full. The thirst ledger had been offered to him at dawn. He had let Lysenne call it cellar accounting. A king preparing for a Luna rite liked records that did not make ceremony look like theft. He looked at Elowen only after the seal hardened. "Until the Luna rite is complete," he said, "you will not enter the Rain Cellar. No anger, no cruelty, only royal finality." That was worse. Elowen lifted her chin. "You sealed the room before reading the thirst records." A murmur moved through the court. Lysenne lowered her eyes as if wounded. "The records you kept alone? The records of who drank and why, or who paid, and how much you hid?" Elowen looked at her then. Lysenne's beauty did not crack. It never did in public. That was the danger of her. She could make a blade look like a blessing. Darric's jaw tightened. "Enough." From the cellar behind him, a jar tapped again. Once, then another, then 3 more. The sound made the youngest wolves in the hall flinch. No one else wanted to hear it. Moonwater was sacred in Vossmere because rain did not fall often anymore. Moonwater did not choose Lunas. It remembered need. A jar marked for fever, grief, birth, or bond wound would resist hands that turned survival into display. It gathered only during silver storms, when the moon broke open behind clouds and left cold, bright water in stone channels. By law, the Luna kept it for blessing rites, fevered wolves, birth wounds, mourning mothers, rejected women, and any pack body too weak to survive ordinary drought. By practice, noble houses received full basins while cellar women counted drops. Elowen had counted for 7 years. She had hidden nothing for herself. She had saved jars from ceremony so widows could live through winter. She had carried Moonwater to rejected women bleeding after bond severance. She had given 1 spoonful at a time to sick wolves, whose names the court never learned because poverty did not sound noble in reports. And now she was called a hoarder because survival had no witnesses powerful enough to defend it. Lysenne stepped closer. "If your hands are clean, Elowen, you should be relieved. Tonight's Luna rite will restore order." Elowen's gaze moved to the silver bowl being carried toward the moon hall beyond the archway. It was wide, ceremonial, uselessly beautiful, rimmed with wolf teeth and pearl. 3 jars of Moonwater rested beside it, chosen for Lysenne's first blessing as Luna. Elowen knew those jars. West shelf, 2nd row, marked for fever use. Her stomach tightened. "Those are not rite jars," she said. Lysenne smiled faintly. "All Moonwater belongs to the Luna." "No," Elowen said. "It belongs to the pack before it belongs to ceremony." The court went quiet. Darric turned toward her fully now. He was a hard man to face. Tall, dark-haired, broad-shouldered, with winter gold eyes and the stillness of a wolf deciding whether something should run. His authority filled the hall before his voice did. But tonight, there was strain beneath his power. Elowen saw it in the faint tremor of his left hand, and the way his shadow wolf flickered near the wall and then pulled back. His wolf was thirsty. Not for water, for something the drought had taken deeper. "You forget your place," he said. "No," Elowen answered. "I remember everyone else's." A few low-born servants lifted their eyes. Only for a heartbeat. Lysenne saw. Her expression cooled. The Luna rite cannot be delayed, because a cellar girl mistakes pity for law. Elowen looked at the sealed door. Pity is what nobles call survival when they did not need it. Darric stepped closer. The air changed. Every wolf in the hall felt the alpha pressure settle over the stones. Elowen's knees wanted to bend. She did not let them. For one dangerous moment, Darric looked less angry than unsettled. Perhaps because she should have lowered her eyes. Perhaps because the jars behind him had gone silent again. Perhaps because his own wolf shadow had turned its head toward the sealed cellar door. Then Lysenne touched his sleeve. The moment closed. "Bring her to the rite," Lysenne said softly. "Let her watch sacred water used properly." So that was the punishment. Not prison. Witness. Elowen was taken to the moon hall and placed below the steps, where everyone could see the girl accused of hoarding, while the chosen Luna poured silver water before the pack. The hall was round, open to the night through a broken roof of carved stone. Moonlight fell in pale bars across the floor. Wolves filled the balconies. Nobles stood nearest the altar. Servants stood farthest from the water. Lysenne lifted the first jar. Elowen's breath stopped. Inside the glass, the moonwater did not shine. It clouded. Lysenne frowned and tilted the jar toward the silver bowl. The water refused to pour. A ripple moved through the hall. Lysenne tried again. The jar cracked. Not loudly, just enough for silver light to leak through the glass like a vein opening. Darric stepped forward. "Stop." Lysenne froze. Too late. The second jar cracked, then the third. From far beneath the hall, behind the sealed Rain Cellar door, every Moonwater jar in Vossmere answered at once. Glass thunder rolled under the palace. The floor trembled. The 3 rite jars burst open in Lysenne's hands. Silver Moonwater rose upward instead of falling, circling her wrists, her gown, her throat. It did not drown her. It did not bless her. It formed a cage. Elowen stood below the altar, breathless, as the water she had saved for the desperate lifted like a wall around the chosen Luna. Then the Moonwater turned toward Darric and rode across the air in silver drops. Thirst-bound water refuses display rite. Darric looked from the silver cage around Lysenne to the sealed Rain Cellar door beneath the hall. For the first time, the jars sounded less like stolen property than witnesses he had locked away. The silver cage did not tighten around Lysenne Vaust. That made it worse. It held her gently, almost respectfully, Moonwater circling her wrists and throat in bright, trembling bands. It did not cut her skin. It did not pull her under. It only refused to fall into the ceremonial bowl at her feet. The moon hall watched in horror. Thirst-bound water refuses display rite. The words hung in silver drops before Alpha King Darric Stonefell, each letter bright enough to reflect in his winter gold eyes. Beneath the hall, the sealed Rain Cellar kept knocking, jar after jar striking clay lids, as if the dead below the palace had begun counting sins. Lysenne lifted her chin inside the water cage. Her face was pale, but her voice remained soft. She cursed them. Every eye turned to Elowen. Of course they did. Elowen stood below the altar steps in her damp rain-gray dress, hands empty, cellar key gone, thirst ledger gone, name already stained before trial could begin. Lysenne pressed one trembling hand against the silver water. The jars obey her. She kept them hidden, marked them in secret, and now they shame the Luna rite before the pack. The cage rippled, but did not break. Darric did not apologize. He did not step toward Elowen with regret in his face or softness in his voice. He looked from the sealed cellar door beneath the hall to the broken glass around Lysenne's feet. Then he asked, "What was in those jars?" Elowen's throat tightened. That was the first right question. It was still late. "You would know," she said, "if you had read the thirst records before sealing the room." A sharp murmur moved through the balconies. Darric's jaw hardened. "Answer." Elowen looked at the 3 shattered jars. Moonwater still clung to the glass edges, refusing the bowl, refusing Lysenne's hands, refusing to become decoration for a rite while the sick waited elsewhere. "Fever water," she said. The hall went quieter, not silent, uneasy. Lysenne laughed softly. "All Moonwater is sacred." "No," Elowen said. "All Moonwater is needed. That is why it is sacred." Darric's gaze sharpened. Elowen pointed to the nearest broken jar. Its clay lid had split in half, but the mark remained visible along the rim. 3 shallow crescent cuts beside a thin blue thread. "West shelf. 2nd row. Fever mark." Lysenne's expression flickered. Only once. Elowen saw it. Darric did too. The chosen Luna recovered quickly. "Fever markings are servant codes. A Luna rite outranks cellar sorting." Elowen looked at her. "A Luna who drinks fever water for display is not blessing the pack. She is robbing its sick." Someone gasped. A nobleman snapped, "Mind your tongue." Elowen did not look away from Lysenne. "I have minded every drop while your houses filled silver basins behind locked doors." The Moonwater cage shivered, not expanding, not revealing all, only remembering need. Inside the silver bands, small images formed for less than a heartbeat. A child with burning cheeks, an old wolf shaking under damp blankets, a rejected woman holding her ribs after bond severance. Then the images vanished. The court saw enough to flinch. Lysenne's voice sharpened. "Illusions. She made them sentimental, because pity is all she has." "No," Elowen said. "Need is all they had." Darric stepped down from the altar. His shadow wolf moved behind him, thin and restless against the moonlit floor. It turned its head toward the shattered glass, then toward Elowen, as if scenting truth inside cold water. "What fever?" he asked. Elowen looked at him then, not softly. "Riverlung. 3 dens below the east quarry. 7 children, 2 nursing mothers. 1 old patrol wolf who gave his cloak to a pup during the last frost." Darric's face went still. He knew the east quarry. Every king knew which places gave him stone and bodies. Lysenne said, "There has been no formal request from the east quarry. The request was in the thirst ledger." Darric's eyes cut to the council steward. The steward paled. "The ledger is secured, Majesty. Bring it." Lysenne moved before the steward could bow. "Majesty, this is exactly what she wants. She kept a private book, and now the jars perform for her because she trained the cellar around her own codes." Elowen's mouth tightened. "I did not train water to remember thirst. Then why does it answer you?" "Because I answered it first." The Rain Cellar knocked again. Harder. Darric looked toward the sealed lower door. "Open the hall record chest." The steward hurried to the side chamber and returned with a narrow gray chest used for ceremony inventory. He unlocked it with shaking hands. Inside lay ribbon lists, rite permissions, water transfer notes, and the pale wax tags removed from jars before public blessing. Elowen took one look and felt the floor go colder beneath her feet. 3 blue thread fever tags lay beneath a silver Luna sash, not hidden well enough for people who never looked beneath ceremony. Darric lifted one tag. The blue thread dripped moonlight. The silver cage around Lysenne trembled. Elowen breathed. Those tags belonged on the jars. Lysenne's voice went low. "Any Luna may reassign water for sacred rite." Elowen looked at her. "Not water already marked for fever." Darric turned the tag over. On the back, in Elowen's small cellar script, were the East Quarry names. The Moonwater rose higher around Lysenne, not choking her, only holding her where everyone could see what display had cost. Then the broken glass at her feet, filled with silver light. Words formed across the wet stone. Fever shelf water taken for Luna display. The broken glass did not stop glowing. That was what frightened the court most. Not the silver cage around Lysenne Vaust. Not the words burned wet across the stone. Not even the fact that Alpha King Darric Stonefell stood with a fever tag in his hand, and no answer ready in his mouth. Fever shelf water, taken for Luna display. The Moonwater held the words bright enough for every balcony to read. Lysenne stood inside the silver cage, face pale, hands lifted carefully away from the circling water. It had not harmed her. It had not blessed her. It only kept her where the pack could see what she had touched. "This is manipulation," she said. Elowen did not move. She stood below the altar steps with the cold floor against her bare feet, watching the blue thread fever tags drip moonlight from Darric's hand. "By whom?" she asked. Lysenne's eyes flashed. "By the woman who marked the jars. I marked them so the sick would not be forgotten. You marked them so water would answer you." Elowen looked at the silver cage. "It is not answering me. It is refusing you." A murmur moved through the moon hall. Darric's voice cut through it. "Bring the thirst ledger." The council steward bowed too fast. "Majesty, the ledger is secured." "Then unsecure it." The steward looked toward Lysenne, only for a heartbeat. Elowen saw it. So did Darric. His winter gold eyes sharpened. "Why did you look at her?" The steward's mouth opened, then closed. Lysenne spoke gently. "Because the thirst ledger was placed under Luna review after troubling irregularities were found." Elowen's breath went still. Luna review. Those two words were soft enough to pass as law, and sharp enough to cut a servant out of her own records. Darric turned to her. "Did you know this?" Elowen laughed once without humor. "I was locked out of the cellar. My ledger was taken. My jars were dragged to ceremony. No, Majesty. No one asked my permission before naming survival and irregularity." His jaw tightened. Not apology. Not yet. But the word Majesty had landed cold, and he knew it. The Rain Cellar knocked beneath the hall again. One har, then another, then many. The sound was no longer random. It came in slow, counting beats. Elowen listened. West shelf, east shelf, back wall, lower rack. The jars were calling from their places, or from the places they should have been. Darric heard it too. "What are they counting?" "Missing marks," Elowen said. Lysenne's voice sharpened. "She invents meaning from cellar noise." Elowen turned toward her. "You heard those jars for years, and called them noise because none of them were marked for you." The silver water around Lysenne rippled. Darric looked at the steward. "The ledger." Now, this time the steward ran. No one spoke while he was gone. Above the broken roof, the moon slid from behind cloud shadow and poured pale light into the hall. Darric's wolf shadow stretched across the stone behind him, thin at the ribs, restless near the shattered jars. It sniffed once toward the fever tags, then turned its head toward Elowen. She did not lower her eyes. The steward returned carrying a thick gray ledger bound in rain-dark leather. Elowen's hands twitched. She knew every stain on that cover, every warped corner, every place where damp had softened the pages from nights she had written beside leaking stone, recording names while the court slept. Darric took it. The silver cage around Lysenne pulsed. Elowen saw why before he opened it. The seal on the ledger was not hers. Her original cord had been blue thread and plain wax. This seal was pale silver. Luna wax. Darric broke it. The first pages were clean. Too clean. Columns rewritten in a polished hand. Allocation notes smoothed into ceremony language. Fever shelf entries reduced to numbers. Names removed. Reasons removed. Need erased into inventory. Elowen felt something inside her go quiet. "They scraped it," she said. Darric looked up. "My pages had names." Lysenne's voice softened. "Personal names do not belong in royal water records. They create bias." Elowen looked at her. "They create responsibility." Darric turned another page, then another. Near the fever section, the moonlight gathered strangely along the paper, refusing the rewritten ink. Silver damp rose from the spine of the ledger. The pages warped under his hand. The old writing began to surface beneath the polished corrections. Not all of it. Moonwater did not reveal everything at once. Only need. Names appeared in faint, wet lines. Mara of East Quarry. Tovin's child. Widow Hest. Rilla after bond severance. Old Fen with river lung. 2 nursing mothers. 7 fevered children. Then, across the margin, one line surfaced in Elowen's original script, reserved until full moon. Do not release for display. The hall went silent. Lysenne's face tightened. Old ink can be staged. Elowen looked at the ledger, then at the silver seal broken in Darric's hand. "No," she said, but timing cannot. Darric's thumb brushed the Luna wax seal. It softened under moonlight. A hidden mark appeared inside it. The imprint of Lysenne's private crescent signet, dated before the cellar door had been sealed. Darric went still. Elowen looked at him. "You sealed the room after the ledger was already taken from it." The Rain Cellar answered, with one hard knock beneath the hall. Water rose from the broken fever jars and rode across the open ledger page. Thirst ledger removed before cellar seal. The thirst ledger would not dry. Silver damp spread through the open pages in Alpha King Darric Stonefell's hands, darkening the scraped ink, lifting Elowen's old names from beneath Luna corrections. The moon hall stared at the sentence written across the page. Thirst ledger removed before cellar seal. Lysenne Vaust stood inside the silver water cage, her hands held away from the circling bands. The moonwater still did not hurt her. It only made every movement visible. "This proves nothing," she said. "A ledger can be moved for review." Elowen looked at her. "Not before the cellar keeper is accused of hiding what the ledger explains." Darric closed the book slowly. No apology came. Only command. "Open the Rain Cellar." A sharp unease moved through the hall. Lysenne's voice softened at once. "Majesty, opening it while the jars are unstable may risk the remaining moonwater." Elowen almost laughed. The remaining moonwater. How quickly stolen things became fragile, when someone important might have to count them. Darric looked at her. "What will the shelves show?" She met his eyes. "That depends on whether you are looking for water or for someone to blame." His jaw tightened. "Good. Let it." The seal he had placed on the cellar door cracked under his own hand. The sound rolled through the lower corridor, like ice splitting in a deep lake. Elowen walked behind him, barefoot on wet stone, the court following at a careful distance. Lysenne's water cage moved with her in loose silver bands, not imprisoning her steps, but refusing to leave her body. The Rain Cellar opened. Cold moon mist breathed out. Rows of clay jars lined the walls from floor to ceiling, each sealed with wax, thread, and etched need marks. Fever, birth, grief, bond wound, patrol injury, winter lung, widow ration. Names hung from some by thin strips of bark. Others bore only symbols because certain wounds became dangerous when written where nobles could read them. Elowen stopped on the threshold. For 7 years, this room had been her duty. Now it looked back at her like a patient left too long with strangers. The jars began knocking. Not all at once. West shelf first. Second row. Fever. Darric heard it. "There?" Elowen nodded. They crossed the cellar. The west shelf still held many jars, but the second row had empty circles in the dust where glass should have stood. 3 spaces matched the shattered rite jars from the moon hall. 4 more were missing. Elowen's stomach went cold. "No," she whispered. Darric looked at her. How many? 7. Lysenne spoke from behind them. The fever shelf was overstocked. Elowen turned. Overstocked? The Luna office has authority to redistribute sacred water, where the pack's strength is most at risk. The East Quarry children had river lung, and High House wolves were weakening from the drought. Elowen stared at her. There it was. Not confession, just belief dressed as law. Noble thirst is not automatically greater need, Elowen said. Lysenne's eyes cooled. Noble houses defend borders. Their strength protects everyone. Then let them defend, with less silver in their bath basins. A few nobles hissed. Darric did not silence her. He was looking at the empty circles. Elowen knelt before the shelf. Dust marked where the jars had rested. Each absence had a faint moon ring at its base, a pale residue left only when need-bound water was lifted before its marked use. She opened the thirst ledger to the fever section and set it below the shelf. The pages curled upward. Old ink rose again. 7 names appeared, then 7 matching shelf marks. Lysenne said quickly, "Cellar codes." She could make them match anything. Elowen did not look at her. Moonwater remembers need. Not my handwriting. A jar still on the fever row tapped once. Its clay lid trembled. Then silver water seeped through the seal and ran down the shelf. Not enough to waste itself, only enough to touch each empty dust ring. Images shimmered in the thin water. A child coughing red into cloth. A nursing mother pressing a fevered pup against her chest. Old Fenn's hands shaking around an empty cup. Then the images faded. The water moved across the shelf and gathered under 4 missing spaces. 4 noble crests appeared in silver. High House Vaust, High House Rel, High House Corvin, High House Mare. Darric went still. Lysenne's face remained composed, but the water cage around her wrists tightened by a finger's width. Elowen saw it. So did Darric. He turned to Lysenne. Did the Luna office send fever water to High House basins? She lifted her chin. Stabilization use is lawful during drought panic. Panic created by whom? Elowen asked. Lysenne's eyes flashed. Darric looked back at the shelf. Answer only what I asked. Lysenne's silence lasted too long. The fever jar beside Elowen knocked again. Silver water rose from its sealed lid, crossed the ledger page, and wrote beneath the 7 surfaced names. 7 fever jars sent to High House basins. Lysenne Vaust did not deny the noble basins. She named them necessity. That was worse. High houses hold the outer walls, she said, silver water still circling her wrists like patient judgment. If they weaken, the whole pack weakens. Elowen remained kneeling before the fever shelf, one hand resting near the 7 empty moon rings in the dust. The East Quarry children were coughing blood, and noble patrol lines were collapsing. They had private wells, not Moonwater. No, Elowen said. They had status. That is what you poured into. A sharp sound moved through the nobles behind them. Alpha King Darric Stonefell did not turn to silence them. His eyes stayed on the shelf marks, the surfaced names in the thirst ledger, and the 7 fever jars sent to High House basins. His shadow wolf stood near the cellar threshold, thin at the ribs, restless in the moon mist. It did not look at Lysenne now. It looked toward the missing jars. Where are the High House basins? Darric asked. The council steward swallowed. In the upper west gallery, Majesty. Prepared for drought stabilization. Elowen looked up. Prepared when? The steward went still. Lysenne's voice became soft. That is a council matter. Darric's head turned. The cellar went cold. Prepared when? He asked. The steward's face paled. Before the Luna rite. Elowen stood slowly. Before the fever request? He did not answer. The Rain Cellar did. A low knock rolled from the west shelf, then another from the birth rack, then another from the bond wound row. Not loud, not frantic. Counting again, Darric looked at Elowen. What does that mean? It means the jars remember sequence. Lysenne gave a controlled laugh. Now water counts time? Elowen looked at her. You should hope it does not. For the first time, Lysenne's expression tightened. Darric took the thirst ledger and moved toward the upper corridor. Open the west gallery. No one argued quickly enough. They returned through the moon hall, past the broken rite jars, past the silver cage still moving with Lysenne step by step, past nobles who no longer looked certain which direction safety lived. Elowen walked behind Darric, barefoot and damp, with the smell of opened moonwater clinging to her skin. The upper west gallery was beautiful, in the way hunger hated beauty. 4 marble basins stood beneath wolf-head spouts, each one carved for a high house. Their rims were silver, their floors were inlaid with moonstone. Fresh water still clung to the sides in shining arcs, far more than any sick den had received in months. Elowen stopped at the first basin. High House Vaust. Lysenne's house. Of course. The basin had been drained recently, but moonwater did not leave cleanly when it had been taken from need-bound jars. A pale residue shimmered along the inside curve, shaped like small crescent scratches. Fever marks. Elowen touched the air above it. Not the basin itself. This water was not used for emergency drinking. The steward stiffened. High house basins stabilize household moonsickness. This basin was perfumed. No one spoke. Elowen leaned closer. Lavender ash, white rose salt, noble bath additives. Fever water was poured into a scented basin while sick children waited. A servant woman near the doorway covered her mouth. Lysenne said, "Ceremonial purification can include fragrance." Elowen looked at Darric. "Ask the basin." His gaze sharpened. "Can it answer?" "Only if you are willing to hear how it was used." For a moment, his pride rose. She saw it. Then he lowered it. "Show me." Elowen opened the thirst ledger beneath the first basin. The old pages curled upward. The basin residue trembled, gathered into silver beads, and dripped down the marble side. Each drop struck the ledger in order. 1. Tfo. 3. Four. Dates surfaced beside the entries. Elowen read them, and felt anger move through her so quietly it became steadiness. These transfers were made before the drought bell. Darric's eyes narrowed. Before? Yes. Lysenne's voice cut in. Anticipatory stabilization. The Luna office knew panic was coming. Elowen turned. No. The Luna office created what it could then claim to manage. The silver cage around Lysenne rippled hard enough to wet the hem of her gown. Darric saw it. So did the court. He looked to the steward. When was drought panic declared? The steward whispered. 3 days after the first high house transfer. A silence fell so complete that even the moonwater seemed to hold its breath. Elowen looked at the 4 basins. You called the cellar empty after you emptied it upward. Lysenne's face remained beautiful. Her eyes did not. You are still only a cellar servant, she said. Elowen touched the ledger with 2 fingers. Then why did your Luna office need to steal my pages before you could tell your lie? The first basin overflowed, though no water had been poured into it. Silver water rose from the marble drain, climbed the rim, and streamed across the floor to the other 3 basins. They answered, one by one, each glowing with fever marks, each carrying a date older than the public drought alarm. Then the water gathered at Darric's feet and wrote in a bright line across the gallery stone. High house basins filled before drought bell. The west gallery did not feel beautiful after the water spoke. It felt washed, not clean, exposed. High house basins filled before drought bell. The silver words glowed across the stone at Darric Stonefell's feet, while the 4 noble basins trembled with leftover fever marks. Behind him, the court had gone still in layers. Nobles first with anger, servants with fear, wolves with the unsettled instinct of a pack, realizing its thirst had been arranged. Lysenne Vaust stood inside her moving cage of moonwater, wet silver bands circling her gown and wrists. She did not struggle. That was her strength. She looked most innocent when evidence gathered around her like a noose. The drought bell was inevitable, she said. Every house felt scarcity. I prepared the strongest families first so the pack would not collapse. Elowen looked at the scented basins. You prepared them before anyone was told to ration. Because I saw what was coming. No, Elowen said. You made people thirsty, then sold them panic as foresight. A growl moved low through the nearest wolves. Darric's shadow wolf lifted its head. For one moment, the Alpha King looked less like a judge and more like a man hearing his own kingdom from beneath the floorboards. He turned to the council steward. Who rang the drought bell? The steward swallowed. The Rain Watch, Majesty. Elowen's eyes narrowed. The steward looked away too quickly. Darric saw it. Bring the bell record, he said. Lysenne's voice became soft. Majesty, the Rain Watch has served your crown since your father's reign. Dragging their record into a Luna disturbance may spread fear. Darric looked at her through the silver water cage. Fear has already been spread. No apology. No comfort. Only the next door opening. They went to the drought bell chamber above the west gallery, a narrow tower of old gray stone, where one silver bell hung in a frame of wolf bone. The bell was never rung for ordinary dry weather. It was rung only when the Rain Watch confirmed 3 failed moon clouds, riverbed cracking, and cellar reserve danger. Elowen had heard it 6 weeks ago. Everyone had. After that bell, rations had tightened. Widows had been told to wait. Sick wolves had been told fever could pass without Moonwater. Bond-wounded women had been told pain was not death. High houses had filled scented basins. The bell chamber smelled of metal, dust, and old rain. Darric stood beneath the bell. Where is the record? The Rain Watch captain, an older woman named Sella, stepped forward with shaking hands. Here, Majesty. She offered a slate board marked with weather cuts and moon cloud counts. Darric read. His face did not change. Elowen watched his fingers tighten around the slate. There were not 3 failed moon clouds, he said. Sella bowed her head. No, Majesty. The room sharpened around that answer. Darric's voice lowered. Then, why was the bell rung? Sella closed her eyes once. Because the Luna office sent emergency authority, Lysenne said. As chosen Luna, I had authority to request alarm if cellar stores appeared compromised. Elowen turned on her. Appeared compromised after your office moved fever water upward. Lysenne's eyes flashed. Careful. Elowen stepped closer to the bell. No. I was careful for 7 years. I counted drops carefully. I wrote names carefully. I sealed jars carefully. Careful is how you had time to steal. A hard silence followed. Darric did not rebuke her. The bell moved. No hand touched it. Only a faint tremor passed through the silver metal, as if the sound that had once been forced through it still lived in the rim. Elowen looked up. Moonwater did not only remember need. It remembered what need had been denied by. The bell was struck wrong, she said. The Rain Watch captain lifted her head. What? Elowen pointed to the inner rim. Rain Watch strikers are ironwood. They leave a dark sound. That edge is pale. Darric stepped beneath the bell and lifted one hand. His winter gold flame rose faintly, not burning, only lighting the metal. A pale mark shone along the inner curve. Round, smooth, pearled. Lysenne's water key rippled. Elowen saw it. Darric did too. What struck the bell? He asked. No one answered. Elowen looked at Lysenne's braided hair. Several moon pearls gleamed there, decorative, ceremonial, harmless to anyone who did not know how tools hid inside beauty. A moon pearl striker, Elowen said. Lysenne laughed softly. Now my hair ornaments ring bells? No, Elowen said. Your office does. Darric turned to the steward. Does the Luna office hold a moon pearl striker? The steward's mouth opened. Lysenne spoke before him. For right timing, not drought alarms. Elowen looked at the bell record. Then why did the drought bell answer Luna Pearl instead of Rain? Watch wood. The silver bell trembled again. This time, water rose from nowhere. Not much. Only a thin ring of moon-bright moisture gathering along the pale strike mark. It slid downward, caught the old sound, and turned it visible. A memory formed in the bell's curve, a gloved hand lifting a moon-pearl striker, a silver sleeve, a crescent ring. Not the Rain Watch captain, not the cellar, Lysenne's Luna office. The image vanished almost at once, but it was enough. Darric looked at Lysenne. She remained composed. Too composed. The Luna office acted to protect the pack, she said. Elowen's voice came cold. The Luna office rang hunger into law. The bell sounded once by itself. Not loud, but deep enough to shake the bones of every wolf in the tower. Silver drops gathered under its rim and wrote across the slate record in clear moonlit letters. Drought bell, rung by Luna Moon Pearl Striker. The drought bell's last note faded into the tower stones. No one moved quickly after that. Even the wolves seemed afraid that another sound might become evidence. Drought bell rung by Luna Moon Pearl Striker. The words shone across the Rain Watch slate in silver drops, while Alpha King Darric Stonefell stood beneath the bell, his face carved into a stillness colder than anger. The Rain Watch captain kept her head bowed. The council steward looked as if he wished the tower floor would open and swallow him. Lysenne Vaust remained inside the soft cage of Moonwater, silver bands circling her gown, her wrists, her throat. It still did not hurt her. It only refused to let her look untouched. "This is administrative procedure," she said. "Emergency authority exists for moments when lower offices fail." Elowen Marsh looked at her. The lower office did not fail. It was emptied, rewritten and blamed. Lysenne's eyes cooled. "You mistake storage for governance." "No," Elowen said. "I mistake theft for thirst." A few nobles bristled. Darric did not silence Elowen. He looked at the Rain Watch captain. If the drought bell was false, why did the Rain Cellar run low? The question struck deeper than the bell. Elowen felt it under her ribs, because that was the part no one had wanted to ask. A false alarm could create panic. It could justify rationing. It could hide cruelty. But jars could not be emptied by sound alone. The captain swallowed. "Moon channels were weak, Majesty." Elowen turned toward her. "Weak where?" The woman's eyes flicked to Lysenne. That was enough. Darric saw it. "Bring the channel map." Lysenne moved one step. The water cage moved with her, silver and silent. "Majesty, channel maps are old infrastructure. Misreading them during court panic could damage public confidence." Elowen almost smiled. Public confidence. What noble houses called truth before it reached the poor. The Rain Watch captain opened a wall panel and removed a long sheet of dark hide marked with silver lines. It showed every rain channel in Vossmere, roof runnels, moon gutters, stone veins, cellar funnels, noble catchways, old drought drains. Elowen knew the map. She had begged to see it 3 years ago, after 2 storm nights produced less moon water than one should have. She had been told cellar hands did not need to understand royal channels. Darric spread the hide across the bell table. The map should have glowed evenly under moonlight. It did not. Several silver lines were dull. Elowen stepped closer. "Those channels feed the Rain Cellar." Darric followed her gaze. "Why are they dark?" The captain's mouth tightened. "Blocked, we thought." "You thought?" "We were told repairs were approved." "By whom?" No one answered. Lysenne did. The Luna office coordinated stormwork during the shortage. Elowen stared at the map. The dull lines did not stop at broken stone. They bent, subtly, deliberately, away from the cellar, toward the upper west quarter, toward the high houses, toward the same families whose basins had filled before the drought bell. Her fingers went cold. "They were not blocked," she said. "They were turned." Darric's eyes lifted to her. Elowen touched one dull silver channel, then another. Rain from the last 3 moonstorms should have gone through the lower funnels into the fever shelves, birth rack, and bond wound stores. Instead, the channels were diverted before they reached the cellar floor. Lysenne's voice sharpened. She is guessing from old marks. Elowen looked at the tower window, where stone gutters caught moonlight above the roofline. Then open the northern funnel. Darric turned to the guards. Open it. They climbed the outer rainwalk, where cold wind cut through the tower, and the palace roofs spread below like dark bones. Silver channels ran along the stone, dry now, but lined with old moon residue. The northern funnel was sealed with pale wax. Not rainwatch wax. Luna wax. Darric touched it. The seal softened under his heat, revealing a crescent impression. Elowen did not look at Lysenne. She did not need to. The guard broke the seal. Inside the funnel, a hidden plate had been fitted beneath the channel mouth, angling the rain path away from the Rain Cellar's main vein and into a narrow upper pipe. Darric's hand closed around the plate. Where does that pipe lead? Elowen looked down over the west roofs. Luna cisterns. The wind went still around them. Or perhaps everyone simply stopped breathing. Lysenne said, "Reserve cisterns are lawful. For ceremony," Elowen answered. "Not for stealing stormwater before it becomes public need." The old funnel trembled. A thin silver moisture gathered along the diverted plate. The rainwater had been gone for days, but Moonwater remembered where it had been denied. It slid down the hidden angle, then reversed direction, climbing impossibly upward until it reached the map in Darric's hand. One by one, the dark channels lit, not to the Rain Cellar, to Luna cisterns. Darric's shadow wolf appeared behind him, larger now, hackles raised, its eyes fixed on Lysenne's silver cage. The Moonwater rode across the channel map in bright, cold lines. Rain channels diverted to Luna cisterns before drought bell. The diverted channels did not point toward storage. They pointed toward performance. Elowen Marsh knew it the moment the upper Luna cisterns were opened. Cold silver light spilled across the rainwalk stones, not the dim glow of rationed reserves, but a hoarded brightness so full it made the dry palace roofs look like a lie. Beneath the west tower, 3 deep cisterns waited behind moon-carved doors, each one sealed with pale Luna wax, each one breathing the scent of stolen storms. Darric Stonefell stood at the threshold with the channel map in one hand. Rain channels diverted to Luna cisterns before drought bell. The words still glowed across the hide. His shadow wolf stood behind him, larger now, ribs no longer thin from illusion but from anger. It stared into the cistern chamber as if it could smell every thirsty den below the palace. Lysenne Vaust's silver cage followed her in soft bands. She lifted her chin. Reserve water is lawful under Luna emergency authority. Elowen looked inside. Emergency for whom? The first cistern was full enough to ripple against its moonstone lip. The second was sealed beneath a silver grate. The third fed a narrow ceremonial channel, leading back toward the Moon Hall altar. Not to the Rain Cellar. Not to fever shelves. Not to birth jars. Not to the bond wounded. To the altar. Elowen stepped forward. A guard blocked her by instinct. Darric's voice cut low. Let her pass. Elowen did not thank him. She crossed into the chamber and knelt beside the ceremonial channel. Its inside wall was polished, smooth, recently cleaned, lined with pearl dust so Moonwater would shine brighter when released. Not ration pipes, she said. Darric came closer. Then what? Display channel. Lysenne's eyes cooled. Luna ascent requires public proof that the moon accepts her stewardship. Elowen looked up. So, after your office rang a false drought bell, after fever water was moved to noble basins, after rain channels were turned from the cellar, you planned to pour the stolen storm back before the pack and call it blessing. A hard silence followed. Lysenne's mouth remained soft. Hope matters during drought. No, Elowen said. Water matters during drought. Hope is what you sell when you have already taken the water. The cisterns trembled. Not all at once. First, the fever water answered, from somewhere deep below. Then birth water. Then grief water. Then bond-wound water. Silver ripples crossed the full cisterns, carrying tiny images in their surfaces. A widow sharing one cup between 3 children. A rejected woman biting cloth through bond fever. A patrol wolf licking frost from stone. Because no moonwater came, Darric saw. So did the court clustered at the doorway. Lysenne spoke quickly. Images can be shaped by guilt. Elowen turned toward her. Then why are they shaped like people you never counted? The silver bands around Lysenne tightened by a breath. Darric looked at Elowen. Can this water be returned to the cellar? Yes. Do it. No. The word struck the chamber. Darric's eyes sharpened. Elowen stood slowly. Not for the rite. Not for the throne. Not so the court can watch you undo theft and call it justice. His jaw tightened. Then for what? For the sick first. A murmure rose. She looked past him to the servants, widows, quarry messengers, and low-ranked wolves who had followed at the edge of the investigation because thirst had dragged them there. Open the Rain Cellar for the names in the thirst ledger, Elowen said. Fever, birth, grief, bond, wound, winter lung. The water returns by need, mark not by ceremony. Lysenne's voice sharpened. She is seizing Luna authority. No, Elowen said. I am returning what your authority stole. Darric stared at her for a long moment. His pride was there. So was his wolf. The wolf lowered its head toward the cisterns and growled, not at Elowen, but at the ceremonial channel. Darric turned to the guard captain. Open the lower cellar gates. Bring the named from the thirst ledger first. Lysenne Vaust. Majesty. He did not look at her. Now, for the first time, the court moved for Elowen's records before Lysenne's ceremony. The cistern water rose. It did not explode. It did not crown anyone. It flowed in controlled silver streams out of the display channel, then stopped, refusing the altar path. The water reversed itself through the diverted pipes, climbing impossible stone veins back toward the rain cellar. Elowen felt the pull in her bones. The rain cellar answered below. Jars opened by need mark, one after another. Not all. Only the ones that had been starved. Then the largest cistern rippled, and beneath its surface something surfaced from the moonstone floor, a gold ceremonial plate inscribed with Lysenne's ascent schedule. Darric took it. His face hardened as he read. Elowen did not need to see the whole inscription. The Moonwater did what it had done all night. It remembered need by showing what had replaced it. Silver letters formed across the cistern surface. Stolen rain reserved for Luna Ascent Miracle. The stolen rain did not rush to the moonhole. It went downward. That was the first public shame Lysenne Vaust could not soften with beauty. Silver streams moved through old channels, leaving the Luna cisterns and returning through stone veins toward the rain cellar below. The water did not flow like a flood. It traveled with purpose, turning away from the ceremonial altar path and seeking the shelves where need marks had waited in silence. Fever, birth, grief, bond wound, vintalung. Elowen Marsh followed the sound down the stairs, with Alpha King Darric Stonefell close behind her and the court trailing at a distance that finally felt uncertain. Lysenne's silver cage moved with her, looser now but still present, Moonwater refusing to leave the woman who had tried to turn survival into spectacle. At the rain cellar door, low-ranked wolves had already gathered. East Quarry mothers, Vitos, a patrol wolf with a cough, deep enough to bend his shoulders, a rejected woman with bond fever sweat shining at her hairline. They stood back when the nobles arrived, trained by hunger to make room for people who always took more. Elowen saw it and her mouth tightened. No, she said. Everyone stopped. She opened the thirst ledger on the wet stone floor. The old names rose through the scraped pages, one by one, silver ink returning beneath Luna corrections. Named need first, Elowen said. No court rank, no noble basin, no ceremony. A nobleman protested. The Alpha King's wolf is weakening. Royal strength must come before cellar sentiment. Darric did not look at Elowen. He looked at the fevered child held against his mother's chest, then at his own shadow wolf, thin and restless near the cellar wall. Named need first, he said. The room changed around those words. Not healed. Changed. Elowen took the first jar from the fever shelf. Its lid opened under her hand without a crack, without resistance, as if it had waited not for power but for the right reason. She poured one spoonful into the East Quarry child's mouth, then one for his sister, then one for the nursing mother shaking beside them. The moonwater glowed briefly in their throats. Not dramatic. Not a miracle staged for applause. A breath returning. Lysenne watched from inside her silver cage. Her expression remained composed, but her eyes sharpened when the court began to see the difference between blessing and use. Darric looked at Elowen while she worked. Why did you never bring this to me directly? Elowen did not stop pouring. You sealed the room before hearing me. The answer landed quietly. That made it worse. Darric absorbed it without defense. For once, no royal explanation stood between his mistake and the woman carrying water to the sick. Lysenne stepped forward. Majesty, she is making you look small before the pack. Elowen turned. No, you did that when you made thirst into theater. The thirst ledger pulsed beneath her feet. Silver water gathered along its spine, then ran across the floor toward the gold ceremonial plate, taken from the Luna cistern. The plate trembled. Its inscription brightened under moonlight. Darric picked it up again. This time, more writing surfaced. Not ritual dates. Names. High House Vaust. High House Rel. High House Corvin. High House Mare. Beside each name was a water amount, a basin mark, and a pledge line. Elowen's breath went cold. They paid for support, she said. Lysenne's face tightened. Political pledges are lawful, not with fever water. The moonwater cage tightened by a finger's width. Darric read the plate aloud, his voice low and controlled. House support to be secured after visible Luna restoration. Basin priority granted before public alarm. The noble houses shifted, not with shame, with fear of being named. Lysenne lifted her chin. A Luna must secure stability. Elowen looked at the women, and sick wolves gathered near the shelves. You secured applause with their water, the Rain Cellar answered. Every jar marked by diverted need knocked once. Then the moonwater in Lysenne's cage rose to her shoulders, still not drowning her, still not cutting, but holding her exactly where the court could see her, while the ceremonial plate burned brighter. Silver words formed across its gold surface. High House support bought with need water. Darric looked from the plate to Lysenne. For the first time, his voice carried not suspicion, but sentence. Lysenne Vaust, by pack law, you will not ascend as Luna tonight. The court erupted. Lysenne's composure broke only at the edges. Without me, your wolf weakens. Without my house, your nobles fracture. Without the Luna rite, your reign starves. Darric's shadow wolf bared its teeth. Elowen closed the fever jar. Your rite was starving it already. Darric turned to her then. Not as king to servant, not yet as man to woman, but as someone standing before the person he should have heard first. What saves the pack now? Elowen looked at the open shelves, the returning streams, the ledger names, and the people waiting behind her. The law changes, she said. Tonight, before another drop is poured for display. The Rain Cellar went silent. Then, from the deepest shelf, one sealed jar opened by itself, and silver water rose into the air. It did not write near Lysenne. It rode above the cellar door where everyone entering would see it. Moonwater belongs first to need. By the time the court returned to the moon hall, the ceremonial bowl looked smaller. It still sat beneath the broken roof, rimmed with pearl and wolf teeth, waiting for a Luna who would not ascend. Around it lay the shattered glass of the 3 rite jars, silver stains drying across the stone where Moonwater had refused display. Lysenne Vaust stood inside the soft cage of water, her gown soaked, her moon pearls dimmed. She had not been drowned. She had not been harmed. That almost made the judgment colder. The water had preserved her so everyone could see her. Alpha King Darric Stonefell entered with the thirst ledger in his hands. Behind him came Elowen Marsh, barefoot, rain-gray dress damp to the knees, carrying the record of names the court had tried to scrape into numbers. Behind her came the people those names belonged to. Fevered children, mourning mothers, rejected women, old wolves with winter lung. For once, the weak stood near the altar instead of behind the nobles. A lord from High House Corvin stepped forward. "Majesty, this is disorder. Survival rights cannot outrank Luna law." Elowen looked at him. "Survival is why Luna law exists," he sneered. "A cellar servant does not define pack law." Darric's winter gold eyes lifted. "Tonight she will read what your house has tried to erase." The hall went still, not because he had defended her, because he had given the room no path around her. Elowen opened the thirst ledger on the altar steps. The pages were still wet with moonlight. Scraped names shone beneath polished corrections. Need marks brightened one by one. Fever, birth, grief, bond, wound, winter lung, widow ration, patrol injury. Lysenne's voice came soft from inside the water. "Majesty, if you break Lunarite authority, every noble house will question your rule." "No," Elowen said. "They will question why your authority needed sick water to look holy." Lysenne's beauty finally cracked. "Only a little. Enough." Darric turned toward the ceremonial bowl. "What happens if the rite is abandoned?" The vow priest swallowed. "The Luna ascent fails." "And the pack?" The priest looked uncertain. "The pack remains without a seated Luna." Elowen closed the ledger. "Better no Luna than a false one fed by thirst." A dangerous murmur rose. Darric's shadow wolf appeared beside the altar, larger than before but still thin at the ribs. It looked toward the Moonwater bowl, then toward the gathered sick, then toward Elowen. It lowered its head, not to crown her, to wait. That mattered. The Moonwater in the shattered jars moved again. It rose in thin streams, not toward the bowl, not toward Lysenne, not toward Darric's wolf. It flowed to the thirst ledger and spread across the names. Elowen understood before the court did. "It wants order," she said. Darric looked at her. "Then give it one." She met his eyes. "Not as your Luna." His jaw tightened. "Not in anger. In restraint." "No," he said. "As keeper of the Rain Cellar." Elowen held his gaze long enough for everyone to feel the difference. Keeper was not bride. Keeper was not display. Keeper was duty with authority. She turned to the hall. Moonwater gathered in Vossmere belongs first to named need. Fever before blessing. Birth before ceremony. Grief before display. Bond wound before noble comfort. Winter lung before scented basins. No Luna, noble house, council steward, or crown may transfer need-bound water without public record and living witness. Lysenne stepped forward. The silver cage tightened, stopping her before she crossed the first stair. "This is theft of Luna power," she said. Elowen looked at her. "No, this is returning what Luna power stole." The thirst ledger flared. Every jar beneath the palace answered. The sound rose through stone, not frantic now, not trapped, but deep and steady. A pack's hidden thirst being counted aloud. Darric drew his blade. Gasps broke across the hall. He cut his palm and let his blood fall onto the ledger's edge. Alpha blood met Moonwater. The pages did not burn. They accepted. By that old sign, the law became royal. I, Darric Stonefell, Alpha King of Vossmere, revoke Lysenne Vaust's Luna Ascent and strip the Luna office of private Moonwater authority until the pack names a keeper council under survival law. Lysenne's eyes flashed. You will weaken yourself. I was weakened by what I refused to read. That was the closest he came to confession before the court. It was enough for the Moonwater. Silver streams rose from the ledger and crossed the hall. They touched the sick first, the East Quarry children, the nursing mothers, the rejected woman shaking through bond fever, the old patrol wolf whose cough had bent his back. Only after the named need drank did one narrow stream turn toward Darric's shadow wolf. It approached slowly. The wolf did not seize it. Darric did not command it. The Moonwater touched the wolf's mouth, and the shadow along its ribs filled with silver light. Not full strength, not instant healing. Enough to stand, without trembling. Elowen watched him learn the order of his own pack. Need first, crown after. The water cage around Lysenne collapsed into a ring at her feet. Guards moved in before she could step away. The high house lords began to protest, then stopped as the thirst ledger opened by itself. Beside each house crest, Moonwater wrote basin amounts, false transfer dates, and pledge marks. No one needed a confession after that. By dawn, the Rain Cellar doors stood open, not uncontrolled, open under law. Jars were returned to their shelves. Need marks were restored. The West Gallery basins were drained and sealed. The Luna cistern channels were broken and redirected to the cellar veins. The drought bell striker from the Luna office was placed inside the public record chest, not as a relic, but as warning. Elowen stood in the cellar while the first true ration line formed. No nobles in front, no servants hidden behind pillars. Names were read. Water was poured. Darric entered after the last fever jar was sealed. He stopped at the threshold instead of crossing, as if the room belonged to him. That was new. Elowen did not turn quickly. You may enter when you understand why the door matters. I understand that I closed it before hearing you. Yes. I understand that I let Lysenne call records accounting, because truth would have made ceremony look like theft. Yes, I understand that asking forgiveness now would be another kind of taking. At that, she looked at him. His face held no demand, no wounded pride dressed as apology. Only a tired king standing outside the room he had sealed against her. What do you want first? He asked. Elowen looked at the shelves, the open ledger, the jars breathing mist in the cool dark. 3 things, she said. The thirst ledger stays public. Need-bound water cannot be touched for display. And no future Luna enters this cellar without the names of the thirsty being read before her. All of it, Darric said. Weeks later, rain finally came over Vossmere. Not a miracle for the court. Rain. Cold, silver, honest rain. The Moon Hall did not hold a new Luna rite that night. Instead, the Rain Cellar opened first. Widows carried jars. Sick wolves drank. Bond-wounded women washed their hands in Moonwater without shame. Elowen stood at the cellar door with damp hair and steady eyes. Darric stood beside her. Not touching. Not claiming. Simply holding the ledger while she read the names. And when the jars tapped softly in the dark, they no longer sounded like witnesses locked away. They sounded like a pack finally being heard.